My name's Mike Ellis. I have a problem. I rescue, refurbish, restore and revitalise vintage drums, in particular Premier drums. In this programme I'll share with you my adventures, ups and downs, ins and outs, triumphs and tragedies as I lavish some TLC on vintage British drums. Welcome to the Drum Fettler. Good evening. In a packed programme tonight, we're going to be talking pre-international, we're going to be talking felt pads, we're going to be talking about the good old days that weren't actually the good old days, and you're going to need your thigh-length boots, your riding crop, and your gimp mask, because we're going to be talking about PVC and rubber. But first, this! Okay, we're back on the concert toms. As you will recall, these lovely Silver Star concert toms are going to be getting resonant heads. Now, these are going to be straightforward enough. We're just going to put 436 lugs around the bottom. The 12 and 13 are going to be a little bit more difficult because the client wants 440-20 lugs fitting. They're the full length high tension lugs. The shell's going to need some filler work because the holes that are left here from the 436-20 lugs don't facilitate easy positioning for the new 44-20 lugs. So that means the holes are going to have to be filled and refinished, but the shell needs refinishing anyway because it's a little bit tatty inside, and also the bearing edges needs doing. Can't do the filler just yet because I haven't got the right colour, but when that arrives I'll be cracking on with that. So in the meantime, I think I'll get stuck into those bearing edges around the bottom. Just getting this die-cast hoop clean before dispatch. This is a pre-international size 16-inch hoop. Before August 1968, Premier made a few of their drum sizes in non-international sizes, so the 12-inch was a little bit smaller, 16-inch was a little bit bigger, and these become known as pre-international. So subsequently, not only the shells this unique size, but the hoops and the heads were this size as well. So that's why sometimes people get a lovely vintage Premier drum kit and they can't get heads to fit because they don't realise that they're pre-international. But Remo do make pre-international sized heads, so they are available. The way to spot a pre-international sized drum is, well, the easiest way is to have a tape measure to hand. But if you haven't got one, here's an easy way to check. You'll see the hoop rod holes here are quite rounded. That means it's pre-international. This is an international size 16, and as you can see, it's a little bit more streamlined. So these are known as streamlined. All Premier hoops after 1968 were made like this, with this style. But the other thing is, these hoops, 16-inch, have 8 holes. Pre-international, you can see, have 10. Just a quick way to spot there, so you don't get lumbered with a pre-international when you want an international size. But there's nothing wrong with them. As I say, you can get the heads. They're readily available if you know where to look. Hi, I'm back. Right, we can move on with the toms because the filler has arrived. Any particular information to tell me exactly what it is. Now, the bearing edges have been done. I needed to cut bearing edges on the resonant side because when Premier made their concert toms, they used the same mould, same sizes as their regular toms, which would have a bearing edge on the batter side and a bearing edge on the resonant side. However, because the concert toms were single-headed, they didn't see it necessary, for obvious reasons, to cut a bearing edge on the open end. So this was just like a flat, unfinished edge that was on the bottom. So I've replicated the bearing edge on the bottom, same as the one on the top. As I said, these are mahogany and they will give a much warmer tone than birch. Still got the beech reinforcement rings. Now, it seems, but we can't say with any degree of absolute accuracy, that Premier started using African mahogany sometime in the early 70s, whereas previously it had been all birch. Now, in the mid-70s, it wasn't uncommon to get a kit with, say, 2 toms that were birch and the bass drum and the floor tom were mahogany. This was because back then nobody cared what the wood was made out of. They were just happy to have a new drum kit. And with the heads that were being used then, the most popular ones were white coated. Nobody really saw inside the drums. It just wasn't important. It wasn't a thing for people to get worried about. Now, it seems that possibly in the mid-70s the regular drums reverted back to birch shells. However, I have seen quite a few, and this is verified by the date stamps, concert toms up to and including 1978 that are made of mahogany. So I can only surmise that perhaps when they went back to making birch shells, the birch shell production went entirely into regular toms, and whatever stock they had left of the mahogany shells went into concert toms. I don't know. As I said, it's not something we can pinpoint with any degree of accuracy. It's purely speculation based on what evidence we do have. Now, as I said, I'm going to repair the wrap, the outside wrap, as best I can. I've still really got to have a think about that and do a couple of tests in unobtrusive places on the shells. But I think this really is going to be a repair, not a restoration. My hairdresser agrees with me on these matters, and well, he does. It's repair, preservation, not restoration. We're not going to try and make it showroom again. So the next job for me is to get the holes filled in the shells. We'll leave those to go off for a few days so they're nice, solid, hard and expanded into place. So now I can get on with the business of cleaning the hardware, the lugs, the insert plates, swivel nuts and the backwashers. People often say to me, "Who the hell are you? And get out of my bloody shower." People often say to me, "What can I do about the worn out Paris rubbers on my snare cradle?" We have these for you. They are PVC. Now, the older Premier ones were made out of rubber, so after all this time, 30, 40, 50 years, the rubber will do as rubber does and will perish and crack and come off and look very unpleasant. But what we've got here is PVC cradle protectors. Now, these fit beautifully the Trilocks, the Lockfast, the Prolock, TriStar and the Trident, and well, all of them pre-Yamaha. For anything from the 60s, 70s and 80s will do the job for you. They come a set of 3. If you happen to have a snare stand that has 4 arms, then I'm sure we can accommodate you. Any more than that, you're on your own. And so to fettle, perchance to drum. Here at Blenheim Drums, we don't just repair drums, we get called on to do all sorts of wonderful and strange repairs. I'd like to meet my new best friend here. This is Wicker Rabbit. Now there's a movie that needs making. Needs a little repair. Now look away if he's squeamish, because I don't want people writing in and complaining about what's about to happen. You'll see that his front near side hopper bouncer, or whatever they're called, has come away, so I'm going to effect a repair. What's interesting, it says it's a Wicker Rabbit, but because of this unfortunate accident, you can quite clearly see he's not a wicker rabbit, he's actually a polystyrene rabbit that's covered in strategically arranged woodshop shavings. We'll get him fixed, don't worry kids, he'll be fine, there won't be any scarring.
Dear sir, I'm writing in regard to the recent episode of the Drum Fettler. Imagine my shock, horror and disgust when I sat down with my 6-year-old granddaughter to watch the programme and the so-called presenter, Mr. Ellis, viciously tore off a buddy rabbit's paw. My granddaughter is inconsolable, and I shall be seeking extreme retribution and extensive damages to compensate for the suffering, anguish and mental distress caused by this act of pure cruelty. I will also be arranging for a large mower to be rammed up.
I don't understand those people who are always banging on about how it was much better in their day, back in the past, a past that, let's face it, didn't really exist, where things like asbestos, rickets, diphtheria and psychopaths masquerading as teachers was a good thing. I don't understand it. And the other thing they always say, always complaining about prices, saying how things were so much cheaper and better value. Well, I've done a little bit of a research which you might find interesting on the Premier 2000. I've got the original brochure just as a matter of interest. There it is. Meet the 2000. This is from 1966. Very nice piece of memorabilia there. But anyway, the prices. This is a price comparison that I did, and it has the actual price of the Premier 2000 from 1968 to just about 40 years later in 2007. Now, using one of those worth calculators, I've managed to convert the old prices into prices of today. Now, it's not strictly accurate, but it's quite interesting to look. I mean, the first thing that strikes me is from 1968 to 1978, the price of a 2000 more than doubled. And then it sort of bottomed out, and the rate of climb seemed to ease off a little bit right at the end of production. But what is interesting is in relative terms, as far as I can tell, 1968, £468, 74, 457, 403, 406, 363. I know there's lots of other financial things to take into consideration, but it's just a bit of fun, this. But interestingly, if these figures are even vaguely reliable, the 2000 in 2007, when production ceased, was around, well, not quite 100, it's well over £100 cheaper than when it first came out. So things weren't better in the old days. They weren't cheaper, they weren't better value for money. Having taken a quick look at the rushes of that piece that I did earlier on the Pre-International 16-inch die-cast hoops in our luxury digital edit suite, I decided that perhaps we need a little more clarification with regard to the 12-inch Pre-International die-cast hoops. For that, we're going to go directly over to Mike. Mike. Thanks, Mike. Right, clarification about Pre-International hoops. The 12-inch Pre-International hoop, as you can see, it's got the beer barrel rounded rod holes. Now, this was slightly undersized, so you can't really officially get full-sized heads, international size heads to fit, but you actually can. Now, this is a international sized head, and it's not uncommon, because I did it when I was a kid with my first kit. I don't know if you can just see that. You could sit the outside of the hoop on the flesh hoop, so the flesh hoop is not sitting inside the actual die-cast hoop, and it will work like that, but obviously it's better to get the right sized head. You can only tell that this is a Pre-International by measuring it or viewing, because it has got 6 rod holes, which is the same number as the Streamline international size die-cast hoop. Are you following this? Good. Now, are all beer barrel style die-cast hoops Pre-International? No. Here we have a 14-inch 8-lug die-cast hoop, and as you can see, it's got the rounded beer barrel hoops, but that is international size. We've also got a 15-inch here. Again, this has got the beer barrel style round rod hole, and it's got 10 holes in it. but there was also an 8-hole beer barrel style 15-inch die-cast hoop. Yeah, making notes, good. Up until the end of the 1950s, Premier made a 10-inch drum. That also had beer barrel hoops, but that drum was also pre-international size, and there wasn't another 10-inch drum until the concert tom version in the late 70s, where, rather curiously shall we say, Premier dusted off their old pre-international mould and were selling pre-international size 10-inch concert toms in the late 70s. And as if that wasn't enough, there's also 6-inch and 8-inch beer barrel die-cast hoops. They were used on bongos. Unfortunately, they are international sized. Beer barrel style die-cast hoops by Premier pre-1968, a summary. 6-inch international size, 8-inch international size, 10-inch pre-international size, 12-inch pre-international size, 14-inch international size, 16-inch pre-international size, and that's it. There were no other sizes apart from the 15-inch, which I forgot to mention, which was international size. Well, I hope that's cleared that up. If you've got any questions whatsoever, please don't hesitate to ask somebody else. That's the filler work on the 12 and 13 Silver Star drums finished now. So they're going to go to one side now for a couple of days to dry. Now what's left for me to do is get the hardware cleaned. This is the internal damper from, well, the 12 or the 13, doesn't really matter because they both had exactly the same component. As you can see, it's a bit grubby, a bit dirty. That's going to be a really fiddly clean, they always are, but the results are usually quite good. I think we'll deal with that at a later date. Right, I've got the inserts out of the lugs. These are the swivel nuts, as you can see. They're all pretty grubby, so we need to get those tidied up sooner rather than later. I'm going to be using a brass wire wheel. Use brass because it's softer than steel and won't damage it. That sparkly clean. You could eat your dinner off that if you're a mouse or not very hungry. But oh, yikes! Look at that. I don't know what it is. Actually, I think I better put that down and put some gloves on. I think that's enough cleaning on the Silver Stars for today. We've still got quite a bit to do. We've got the tom mounts to do, the back washers, the swivel nuts, and that's it. So we shall return to this project anon. Do you want to feel damper? No, sorry. Do you want a felt damper? Of course you do. Well, you do. You've got one of these that's missing one of these little doobies, the felt pad. This is an internal damper fitted by Premier to their drums until around 1980, and very often these felt pads will become worn or dirty or just drop off and disappear when you change the heads after they've been rattling around inside. So with this lovely bit of nice white felt, we can make you new ones. Here's one I prepared earlier. 5 layers of felt. It's got a self-adhesive pad on the back. You just peel off that little bit of paper there and it reveals a fairly aggressive adhesive pad which you can then just stick on to your internal damper and your drum's back in action. Well, it seems the pre-international thing isn't quite over yet. I need to provide you with an addendum to the 2 pieces we did earlier. Now, we have the pre-international addendum here in this box. Now, as far as we're aware, it's the only pre-international addendum in captivity, so we need to be fairly careful with it. So let's see if we can extract it from the box. Let's have a look. Yes, there it is. Let's take a look at this, shall we? Pre-international drums are not metric. Repeat, not metric. Despite what you may think, Britain is not a metric place. We buy things in yards, shillings and ounces. Raw potatoes come in bushels or something. And pennies make pounds. And sorry, it goes on a bit. Right. Metric drums are not something we care about. If you call pre-international drums metric, you will be taken outside and shot. There. Well, I hope that clears that up. We'll just put that back in there. Nice and safely. So it doesn't escape and breed with any international addendums. So, thank you very much. That's it. That's your lot. You're not getting any more. You've had enough. Got my Chinese food. Join us again for the next episode of Drum Fettler.